So after Diamonds Are Forever didn't really do the box office that they wanted, and audiences and critics were pretty divisive on that film, and Sean Connery said he would not come back to any more Bond films. So they were kind of in a pickle. Could they make a great James Bond movie without Sean Connery? Well, they proved that they did. So in 1973, we got the first Roger Moore-led Bond film, Live and Let Die. Welcome back to my series of Bond films, guys. I've been reviewing every single Bond film leading up to No Time to Die, hopefully, unless it gets delayed, this November. We are cruising. We're done with the Sean Connery era. We've discussed it on Her Majesty's Secret Service, and now we are talking about Live and Let Die. Now, Live and Let Die is a film that pretty much gets hated above the Bond public. So you either love the film or you hate the film. There's really no in between. For me, I think it's more I love it than I hate it, but for me, it is a very in-between movie. I think there's a lot of elements of this film that work, but there's some elements of this film that I don't think work, and I think they could have definitely been improved later on in these movies. But let's talk about, first up, what works. Roger Moore, even though he definitely does get better in the films, he is pretty darn good here as James Bond. Now, I'm not the biggest Roger Moore Bond fan. Let's just get this out now. I don't hate the way he decided to tackle Bond, but I do prefer the more serious, more brutish, more rugged James Bond film that the books and kind of conflicted him to be. But Roger Moore is not bad in this film. He's suave, he's collected, and he's really good in the action sequences. The rest of the cast, I think, is really stellar, and also the villain. I found the villain to be a pretty good Bond villain. He's very over the top, very crazy in a lot of ways, but I think that's part of the charm, and it's just a really kind of fun villainous presence if you really think about it. And this film is super crazy and wacky and just very unique in the way it decides to tell it. It's not a typical film, and it's not a typical Bond film of the way it tells the story, because it gets super chaotic. It gets super crazy. I want to say something. This film, in a way, is basically an acid trip for 2.5 hours. This movie has insane stuff going for it. There's gypsies, there's magic, there's voodoos, there's prophecies, there's insane action sequences. This Bond film goes all out. And I gotta say, the weird stuff of this film is not the problem. I actually really love how weird and crazy and just absolutely out of this world ridiculous that this film goes in and goes through to do the more ridiculous aspect of Bond, which I like how unique this film got. The theme song, Live and Let Die, is probably the most iconic Bond theme. I think it's really great, really catchy music. The action sequences, I think, are pretty stellar. Nothing too amazing or anything, but they stand out enough, and they're fun and unique, and there's enough crazy, fun, unique action sequences to keep you engaged and keep you invested. The film is pretty well paced, and it's kind of a mystery film, and it does a really great job of keeping you entertained, but also really engaged for 2 hours. Because this film has a lot going for it, because it's really weird, I think the film does a great job of keeping you super invested, and even when the film does get super weird, which trust me it does, I think it does a great job of balancing it out through this entire film. And I gotta say, why I don't think this is top super tier Bond film, I do gotta admit there is a weird kind of crazy charm to the film. Like the villain's death, for example, it looks terrible, it looks super cheesy and corny, but I think that's the point. This kind of has a weird look to it, but also kind of a weird feel to it. I gotta admit, this is not your average movie, and I think that's what kind of throws a lot of people off. This is not your average film. This isn't your average Bond film. But the film is so fun, it's so crazy, it's so wacky, you can't help but laugh at sometimes this film is super silly. Let's talk about what I don't like though. Sometimes it's style over substance. Sometimes the film goes to try to get too crazy, like the ending. I'm not a big fan of the ending. It kind of goes overboard, it kind of goes over the top, kind of goes, like, we need to have a silly ending. And why I do think Roger Moore is good in the film, but his opening didn't really work for me. I thought it was kind of cheesy and just kind of silly that we saw where Bond hangs out. I didn't really like that. And I didn't find the romance to be that engaging here. And that's one of the biggest parts about a Bond film is the romance. In this film, I didn't really find it that engaging. My main problem with the film is I don't really feel like rewatching this film a lot of the times. Yeah, it's fun, it's crazy, it's wacky, it could be kind of fun, but again, I don't feel like always wanting to pop in Live and Let Die. When I'm marathoning the series, sure, I'll pop in Live and Let Die, but in terms of a Roger Moore film, Live and Let Die is not one of them. I think it's one of his better ones because he has a lot of stinkers, which we'll get to in the Roger Moore era. But there is a lot of moments in this movie that just don't work tonally, and the tone of this film is all over the place. It just kind of goes from wacky tone to wacky tone. It just doesn't really work. And a lot of the times, the film has a hard time keeping me engaged for a lot of it. And overall, Live and Let Die is a very good Bond film. I think it's extremely fun, extremely entertaining, and just extremely enjoyable. But I'm not going to say it's one of my personal favorite Bond films. It's not Moore's worst, but I wouldn't say it's his best either. If people who love the film, I understand, and people who don't really like this film, I can understand as well. It's an extremely crazy, chaotic movie. And I can understand if you don't like it, I can understand why you wouldn't really like it. But overall, I think this is a pretty enjoyable Bond film. I'll give Live and Let Die a B. A B for pretty basic movie. I'm not going to say it's the worst thing, but I'm not going to really say it's the best thing. So there you guys have it. Those were my direct, utter thoughts of Live and Let Die. Tune in next week where I'll be talking about a pretty controversial one, The Man with the Golden Gun. And there might be a lot of Bond films because I got to crank these out before the end of November. And here it is, almost October already. Tomorrow will be October. So, and tune in for October. I have a lot of really cool, hopefully Halloween horror ideas planned for the month of October. So I am excited for October, so tune in for October for the channel. If you guys like this video, if you guys want to see more videos like this on the channel, please leave a like and subscribe and hit that post notification bell if you guys are new, so you guys never miss an upload on a daily basis. I upload Monday through Saturday for all sorts of awesome movie content. If you guys like this and want to see more movie content from me, I do run a podcast. It's called the Movie View Podcast. I do every other Tuesday with a friend of mine. It's called the Movie View Podcast, as I already said. We talk about movies, TV shows, trailers, news, updates, topics. It's a whole bunch of fun, and you guys can also check out my Instagram at GeneralScoDaniel77. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you guys next time. General out.